Record. Good morning, everybody. My name is Zarn, and welcome to the call. Thank you so much for being on time. I am direct to the amazing Chris and Lauren Cook, and very proud to be so. I've been here full-time since February of 2018, and they always like us to share a little bit of our story. So I'm reaching out to you this morning from what is now sunny Southern California. We've been covered in smoke for some time here, and it's clearing up, and God bless those firefighters as they do their hard work and keep them safe out there. So what we'll be covering today is the new agent call, going over some blocking and tackling, like fundamentals of what it is that we do, and going through some real practical application ideas, points that I hope that you can write down, implement, because it's not enough to know something, it's the actual execution. And oftentimes in this business, we always say, because this business is simple, it's not easy, but it's simple, and it's not what we don't know, it's what we don't do. So everything we possibly could need to be successful here is available at our fingertips. And in fact, there's so much material that some people feel a little bit overwhelmed. So at the end, I'm going to recommend a couple of great audios that you really dive into, maybe as a great starting point or as a refresher if you've been with us for some time. So how I got started with Symmetry. Well, Chris and I actually go back quite a ways. We go back about 10 years now. He and I were working along with Brandon and Casey, believe it or not, in the old practice company, or whatever you want to call it. So we have the same history over there. And Chris and I actually met in St. Martin in the Caribbean on an all expense paid carrier trip. It was amazing, amazing, amazing time. And I would highly encourage you, as one of the things we're going to cover today is incentives and fast track bonuses that Symmetry does, which are just almost beyond amazing, that we have the opportunity to plug into those. So we met over there and we kept loosely in touch. At that time, we just kind of hit it off. When you meet certain people, you have that connection. It's really neat because you immediately have that connection. We're the same age. He's got 2 kids. He's married, all that kind of stuff, right? So we had that. And we were both kind of at the same level, if you will. We were both making over 6 figures, qualified for the trip, so doing well by all standards. With the other practice company, it was a lot more difficult to be profitable than it is here. Hence why we're ultimately here. But so fast forward, I had left that company years prior. Chris calls me up out of the blue, and at that point I have a job, a job, really the only real job I've ever had in my whole life. I was an account sales manager, doing well, again, by all world standards, making that 6 figures, 401k benefits, all that kind of stuff. But I wasn't happy. I knew I was capped out. And that's never how I was wired. And when I kind of halfway joke, and it's the truth, it's the only real job that I've ever had, because I've always been in some sort of outside sales position or, running a small business of my own, that sort of thing. So when he approached me with this, I looked at it very critically. I was open, but I didn't want to do what I did before because I knew the results I got before. So I asked questions that most people wouldn't ask. Detailed questions. How does this work? How does that work? Things that you don't even necessarily think of in the very, very beginning as you're getting started. So I looked at it very carefully, and my challenge was that I had to somehow replace that income without a hiccup, without missing a beat. Living in Southern California with a home, 2 or 3 cars, 2 kids, all that kind of stuff. Nothing super fancy, but 6 figures just pays the bills. That's all I was doing, and that's not what I wanted to do going forward. So very happy to say, as I came here February 18th full time, I worked part-time leading up to that. And from February to the end of the year, I was able to replace my income in 2018. And then last year, gave myself a very substantial raise of about 60% in 1 year. So obviously it was a great move for me. I was willing to put in the work. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I didn't expect it to be. There's no easy way to make that level of income, but what an amazing ride it's been. And the places that we've been just over the last year, not this year, but in 2019, I traveled more than I have ever in my life, just, domestically, but seeing parts of the country that I've always wanted to see. So that was amazing. So that's my story with Chris. He called me up and I looked at it. It was a fit for me. And if you're brand new with us, if you work hard, what I always say is this business is an easy business if you work hard. And I hope and pray you hear this. This is a really hard business if you work it easy. So the very first thing you need to do is decide that this is your job and treat it as such. If you had a job and you had to be there from 7 to 4, how long would you have that job if you showed up at 7:30? Probably not more than 2 or 3 days. You know, they would say, see ya, right? Where's your commitment level? But, you know, one of the greatest things and one of the most challenging things we have here is that we get to create our own schedule. So having that integrity of schedule is obviously super, super important. So with that and schedule in mind and system in mind, let's dive right into the 2 reasons why people don't make it on the phone. First reason is, hitting whack-a-mole here. First reason is they just simply don't make enough dials. So with that, your minimum dialing, if you're just getting started and you're part-time, should be 250 dials in a week. Well, what we say is basically if you're dialing properly, and we'll go over what a proper, what proper dialing looks like. If you're dialing properly, you should be making about 35 dials in an hour. So if you take 250 divided by 35, that's less than 1 day's worth of work. That's a little over 7 hours of dialing in the week. So that's what I'm saying. For a part-time agent, the minimum should be that as you get started, because you have to accelerate your learning curve to where you're actually progressing, and you will progress at that level. So if you're just starting out and you're full-time and you're just barely getting going, I would say double that, okay? Because if this is your job and you're calling this your full-time job, I'm only talking about working 14 hours a week. So committing 14 hours a week, not 30, not 40, not 60, like a lot of us do in regular jobs to make that kind of income, anywhere near 6 figures or beyond. Typically, you're working 50, 60 hours or more, which is what I was doing. We're not talking about doing that. We're talking about working either 7 hours part-time or 14 hours full-time if you're looking at this as a job and just getting started. The great news is we don't have to necessarily continue to do that. A lot of people who got started in here that are really, really successful, Chris Cook, Grant Reynolds, Elijah, like you look at their first week's dialing sessions, they were horrible, like horrible. We're talking about over 500 dials without setting an appointment. And you look at Sean Kim, who was the #1 producer last year, and I haven't looked at the leaderboards, but I'd be surprised if he's not in the top 3, 4, or 5 this year in the whole company. If you look at him having English as his 4th language, he had to make 1,000 dials before he set one appointment. I'm not talking about running one appointment. I'm not talking writing one application. I'm talking about setting one appointment. And with those incremental steps, like Dan Young puts it this way, a millimeter of progress is progress, unless it's in 100 different directions. So we'll get into that as far as the concept of having massive action and constant correction. Dustin, I looked this up and I hope I remember the stat right. If you're 1 degree off going to the moon, you end up somewhere around 5,300 miles in the middle of space. You're just out there floating, okay, by 1 degree, okay? And the reason why that's a great analogy is that this is a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? This doesn't necessarily happen overnight. And overnight successes that you do see that come in the business, for example, I'll mention a name here, Jeffrey Miller. He's coming in, he's absolutely crushing it. He's working extremely hard, harder than most, plus his overnight success is attributed to his 10 years experience prior. So it's not an overnight success. That's sort of a myth. Just having sort of that breakthrough is a myth. It's the little things done over and over again. And this book here that we're reading this month, if you don't have it or haven't heard of it because you're brand new, it's called The Slight Edge. Of course, I always have it nearby, so it looks like that. Okay, by Jeff Olson. Yeah, there you go, Dustin. Has truly had a profound impact on me. And what it talks about there is mastering the mundane. Master the mundane. If you're taking notes, write that down. Master the mundane. What we do is not hard, okay? It's not hard. You just have to do a lot of it, especially in the beginning. And here's the thing, like taking notes, okay? For example, and yes, I have no idea who's taking notes and who's not, but I'm picking on you guys who aren't taking notes. Because when we talk about mastering the mundane and the simple things, it's easy to do But here's the problem. It's also easy not to do. That's the challenge. Like in the Matrix, the problem is the choice, right? The problem is the choice. So, and at the end of the day, you can't get upset for not getting the results that you didn't work for. All right. So it's about hard work. It's about massive action. It's about constant correction. Constant correction is that daily, sometimes multiple times a day, communication with your key leader, your agency owner, the person who's getting results in this business. Okay. Should be in the very, very beginning, it should be constant communication. Make sure you're reaching out to them. It's not up to them to reach out to you. All right. So keys, tips for the phone on being successful is triple dial. So what does that look like? You open up the lead, or you print it or pick it up, right? And you make that first phone call. So a lot of times there's two numbers on the lead. You dial the first number, their cell phone number. If it's listed as home and cell, call their cell phone number first, because most people pick up that before they're home. So you let it ring through. If nobody answers, what I do is I let it go through the voicemail, because the lead might say Jonathan, and his voicemail says, "Hi, you've reached John." So now I've picked up a really, really important piece of information that he goes by John. Nobody calls him Jonathan except for telemarketers, which we're not. So when I call him back, I'll know to call him John. So listening to the voicemail, even though that takes extra time, letting it go all the way through, beep, and then I personally leave 2 seconds of just dead air. Okay, and the reason why I do that is they're going to get notified that they have a voicemail even though there's nothing there. And then I'm going to call back, wait barely a second or two, I'm going to call right back, and then that time I let it ring 3 to 4 times. That's it. Either they're going to pick up or they're not. They've already made the decision. And when you dial the third time, the exact same thing. 1, 2, 3, click. And by that time, I'm already looking at my next one, whether it's on paper, I'm turning the page, looking at the next lead, getting ready to dial, looking at what that prefix is. So when you do it that way, that's 3 dials on 1 lead. And if there's 2 numbers on there, you repeat the process with the second number. So some people say, does it take 250 leads? Or does it take 500 leads to dial that many times? Not even close, because you can repeat that process. If you're doing that in the morning, you can repeat the process in the afternoon. And if the lead has 2 phone numbers and they don't answer, and you're doing it dialing twice in a day, having 2 dial sessions, you've made 12 dials on 1 lead in 1 day. Okay, so it's always important to clarify that, because that always pops up. Booking within 24 hours. Show rate, in other words, the number of people that are actually there when you call and pick up the phone, is a lot higher on same days. Okay, if you're able to call in the morning and set appointments for that same afternoon or that evening, that's ideal. Okay, that is absolutely ideal. So booking within that 24 hours means you're setting up for that day or the next day. Okay, that day or the next day. And obviously, if you're dialing on a Saturday, which a lot of people are home on Saturdays, pick up their phones, they're in a different mindset. They're not in work or go mode. They're in kind of chill mode. So you're going to catch some people that you won't catch during the week. Obviously, you're going to set for Monday if Sunday is a day off for you. Okay, so Saturday for Monday, but other than that, setting for the same day or next. Saturday for Saturday, right? If you're calling on Saturday, set it up in the afternoon if you can. So key tips is going to be low and slow. Basically, you're drawing people in by speaking a little bit slower than they do. So if I have someone who's clearly elderly and says, for example, and you can tell just by the way they pick up the phone, they say, "Hello." What I'm going to say is, "Hello, John? Hi, John. My name is." If someone picks up the phone and says, "Hello, John," I'm going to say, "Hey, John, my name's Zarn. I'm giving you a call back with," see how it sort of mimics and matches, okay? But always go a little bit slower. You never want to go faster than what they're going, because you're going to actually draw them in by going low and slow. And you're the opposite of what a telemarketer is going to be. We're not telemarketing, right? We're calling them because they requested us to. So picture someone working in a doctor's office. They're not overly excited. They're just there booking appointments. You know, they're friendly, but in most cases, and they're just there to do a job. And that's what we're there to do. And that's actually going to draw people in. If you have this fear that you have to get information out as quickly as possible because they might hang up, they're 10 times more likely to hang up. So get over that, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where you're just trying to get people to not hang up and they're hanging up on you. So slow it down and work with your mentor on that one. So let's see here. Don't book appointments during conference call times. This comes back to schedule. First thing on my schedule is my time off, okay? Or family commitments where I just can't move it. Sundays is just off. Someone asked me if I can call them on Sunday. Nope. I don't say it that way, but the answer is no at the end of the day. So that's me. You can work Sundays if you want to. That's your decision. But for me, I don't. So I have that on my schedule. I have my conference calls, all of them, every single one of them on my calendar as a recurring event with a reminder with the meeting link. So I just live and die by my calendar. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? I can literally just click on that calendar event, click on the meeting link, and I'm in. I'm not digging for an email. I'm not trying to find it on GroupMe. And pretty much every call except for this one has the same link every single week. So that tip alone, if you're not doing that, that's going to save you a lot of time and potential frustration from, trying to rush and figure out, when the calls are, or actually missing them because you forgot. So it's hard to forget when your phone is giving you a reminder. So that's important. Role playing with your upline, your mentor, your growing person that you're working with, as far as handling objections, making sure you sound good. The first 7 seconds on the phone is the most important. Okay, first 7 seconds is the most important. They're going to decide whether they're going to give you time or not, whether they're going to break their inertia, whether they're going to take their focus off, put some focus on you and basically understand what you're saying. You have a chance to convey why you're calling, or whether they're at work, they're going to stop their work for 2 minutes and talk to you. So it's breaking that inertia, which is really important. And when you make calls, the script is basically BEST, be busy, establish why you're calling, set the appointment, and tie it down. So busy is just the number of dials. That's easy. Remember, mastering the mundane, that part's easy. Establishing why you're calling, yes, there's a science to it. Here's the script, but the art to it is basically mastering that. And it's not about memorizing it. It's about internalizing it to where it's just kind of flowing, where you're having a conversation, okay? So let's see here. Give me 1 second. I got someone in the waiting room. If I can figure out where the heck that is. There we go. Excellent. So it's about internalizing that. So you can basically move in and out of that conversation easily. And that does take practice. That's the art of it. The science of it is a script. The art of it is basically just doing it over and over and over again. And doing it live is going to be the key. So you do role play, but getting on the phone, jumping in the pool is key. Here's a suggestion, another easy thing to do. Promise, this suggestion is going to be easy to do, and I challenge you to actually do it if you haven't, okay? Get the managing phone objections script. Yeah, okay, you should have access to that. If you don't, request it from your mentor. They'll get it right over to you, I promise. Get your phone. All phones have a way to record. Find whatever device that is, download, do whatever you got to do, okay? Read the objection itself, okay? I'm not interested. Can you call me back? Read whatever that is, and then record about 15 seconds of dead air, and then read the next one, and then dead air, and then read the next one, and then dead air. Driving, we're not doing a whole lot of driving now, but what you do is you play that back, and you're able to practice without having someone to practice with you. So you're gonna, if the playback's gonna go, you're gonna have the script in front of you, you're gonna read what it says, okay? And then the next objection, you're gonna read what it says, and do that over and over and over and over again, where you get past the memorization, where you're actually internalizing it. And so you can wait till you get 20, I'll think about it, or 20 not interested on the phone, or you can just tell yourself not interested on the recording and then go through that. So you can move smoothly. It's about internalizing the conversation there, or internalizing the script. So that's a suggestion. Lead budget. So what does that look like? When you first start out, you should be looking to manage about a 1 to 5 conversion rate. So every dollar that you spend should equal $5 in commissions. So you say, okay, so I want to net after expenses $1,000 a week. How do I do that? Okay. Well, here are the numbers. Like it or not, these are the numbers. But I would start by saying trading dollar bills for $5 bills is a pretty good deal. Okay. So $1,000 a week net, triple net, like after all of your expenses, you're going to need to be investing about $200 a week. Okay. If you want to make $2,000 a week, you need to be investing about $4,000. If you want to make about $3,000 a week, you need to be investing about $6,000. So basically what this is talking about is, as you manage your business, talking about your business overhead expense, you're managing that, right? So mine in 2019 was 19.8%. So it's right on those numbers. So about 20% business expense, which is how that works out. So that's what your budget should be. So ask yourself, how much do I need, how much do I want to make? And then reverse engineer and realize that that's not necessarily going to happen overnight. So this is going to be very consistent if done consistently over 6 weeks. 6 weeks, okay? And the key is to resolve all the leads. What does resolve mean? Resolve means getting a yes or getting a no. And I'll tell you where it can be frustrating if you don't understand how it works. Understanding metrics and knowing your numbers is absolutely key. So the analogy here is we're basically turning over rocks, okay? We're turning over rocks to find gold, okay? That's not complicated. That's mundane. If you get really good at turning over rocks to find gold, you can do really well in this business. If you're turning over rocks and then trying to turn that rock into a piece of gold, you're going to get really frustrated. If your expectation is that every rock you turn over, you're going to find gold, you're going to get really frustrated. If you know you're working older leads and you got to turn over 20 rocks and you find a piece of gold, you turn over 20 more rocks, you find another piece of gold. The question is, how many rocks are you going to turn over? How many dials are you going to make? How many appointments are you going to make? It's just the hard work of what we do. And the reality is, let's face it, we're sitting here at home. I prefer a headset because it keeps my hands free, right? Or your earbuds or whatever they are, right? Your hands free, you're sitting in an air-conditioned office in front of a computer. I mean, really, how hard is that? I mean, mentally it can be a little bit taxing, but doing anything over and over again. One of my first jobs, I have time, I'll tell you a quick story. Don't judge me when I tell you this story. So one of my first, I was young. So one of my first jobs was at a call center, okay? And the expectation was $300 a day, and I was making outbound cold calls, right? Headset, little tiny cubicle, like I don't know what that works out to be, 3 feet wide, and there was someone right next to me, right? So outbound calls, was working great. I actually got promoted to the inbound call center because we were making outbound calls, getting people to call back in, until, keep in mind I was a teenager, this is a very long time ago, until I show up and there's people in black jackets, like windbreakers, with big, carrying computers, by the way, jackets. And any idea, any clues what that might have said? No, you guys are all muted. I'll tell you, it said FBI. So like I said, don't judge me. It was a long, long time ago. I don't know. But so that job was short-lived. But I tell that story just because it's funny, not has any relevance. But I think it's funny. That's my only criteria. So with that, that was the job. You know, you just do the job. You just show up, make phone calls. It's not emotional. Once you get to that point, you remove the emotion. It gets easy and it gets fun. If any, I don't do a ton of dial sessions, but when you hear me on there, you'll always hear me have fun, right? So it is fun. So mastering the mundane of what we do. So the lead budget is basically that, resolving over 6-week period, resolving all leads and committing to a 6-week period of consistent lead flow and activity. It's all about fresh resources, okay? Leads are a decaying asset. So what happens is the goal is always to resolve all leads, but you're not going to resolve all leads. There's just some people that are simply never, there's a certain percentage they'll never ever pick up. And the tendency over time is, as that grows, you're going to say, wow, I have all these leads. Like, I don't need new leads. I have this many leads. Well, they didn't pick up the first 10 times you called. They're far less likely to pick up on the 11th. So you need fresh resources. Okay, so it's all about that. It's just turning over those rocks fine gold. As you call those things for the 20th time, and if you have time, go for it, do it. You're welcome to do that, but having the fresh flow of resources is absolutely the key. Okay, 8 sits part-time. So we're not talking about 8 appointments set. We're talking about 8 sits where you're sitting down, presenting, actually running an appointment is the goal for a part-timer. Okay, and 15 sits full-time. Once you get to that level, you can't help but do good. You can't help but be successful and help families. You will be successful and you will be making a lot of money once you start doing all of those things consistently. So here are some specific audios that I suggest that are available on the SFG website under training. If you do not have access to the SFG website yet, reach out again and request that you get these ones sent to you. They just had a profound effect on me. So under agent, so it's sfglife.com, under training, there's a section there where the audios are, which is agent training, and this one's called Working Older Leads. It's a classic, Working Older Leads by Ashley Tarr. So that's as you get started and you're working over leads, it's going to give you the right mindset. The next one is a little bit further down on the training page. It's the Monday sales training. There was one that was, the stamp date on there is June 2nd, 2020. And it's called Solidify the Need, Eliminate Objections. So it's a Monday sales training from June 2nd, Solidify the Need, Eliminate Objections. The next one is also a Monday training from a week later on the 8th, June 8th. And that was hosted by Cicily Newsome, and Tim Penso. The only thing you really need to know is the dates. So Monday sales training on the June 2nd and June 8th. You'll see the title that we listed there. Okay, so the next quick topic here is product progression. So we were recently informed by Tina that our contracting, or not ours, but Mutual of Omaha's contracting department is way backed up. Okay, because of their limited staff, and even with this pandemic going on, we're thriving. Okay, the company is growing very, very fast. So we're growing, and their support has, and most company support has shrunk based on availability of workforce. So we're not picking on them. It just happens to be that their contracting is very slow. So the product progression that I'm going to suggest is if you are brand new. If you are not currently contracted with Mutual of Omaha, I would suggest switching or pivoting over to American Amicable. Their contracting, I understand, is within a couple, 3 days. They're fast. I've experienced that with my new agents as well. American Amicable, they have a great product called Home Certainty. Home Certainty. This is our bread and butter. It goes up to age 75, and it's just a term product for mortgage protection. Okay, and their face amounts are higher. So by comparison with Mutual of Omaha, their bread and butter product only goes to age 70, and their face amounts drop off pretty steeply when you're talking about older ages. Back to American Amicable, Home Certainty, it goes up to age 75, and they have higher face amounts. Okay, and they issue really, really, really fast. You can get an approval late in the day. And I don't know how in the world they do this. You get an email about 11 o'clock Pacific time anyways, that you got a deposit coming. And by about 2 o'clock that same day, the money's in the bank. So they're issuing and paying policies in like 2 or 3 days. It's crazy. So great company, American Amicable. I've done a lot of business with them. If they are older, over 75, or if they have more significant health issues, there's a very good chance that they're going to qualify for something called Dignity Solutions. Dignity Solutions, which is a final expense plan. Okay, it's going to be lower face amounts. It's a different type of product. It's called a whole life. But they're far more liberal on their underwriting. So our bread and butter is Home Certainty. If they have more significant health issues or they're over age 75, Dignity Solutions. A product that you can write for virtually everybody is and I know I said Mutual of Omaha, but Mutual of Omaha accidental death is a guaranteed issue. Love that product. You submit it, they issue it, you get paid no muss, no fuss, okay? So that's a great add-on. So you've written a home certainty, and now you're maybe writing another $100,000 accidental for 12 bucks, right? You're just increasing the value of that policy. And one of the great things there too, if you're not contracted with Mutual of Omaha, is that it's going to force things through. It's going to get your contracting through. Just make sure you set up the expectations properly with your client, all right? And then Mutual of Omaha has a great policy. If there's little ones running around, just mention it. Say, you know, we have a great program for the little ones, starts about $4 or $5 a month for $10,000 in coverage. What do you think? A lot of people are gonna say yes, all right? It's $4 or $5 a month or $6 a month or whatever it is if they're older, but it's really, really inexpensive. This builds value in the home. You're gonna get paid on it. It's not gonna be a lot of money, but that's not the point. The more policies you have within a house, the higher your persistency is. So keep that in mind too. Always offer children's whole life. Get familiar with that product. It's amazing. The application is super, super short. Parents can write it, grandparents can write it, and there's 2 questions. There's 2 questions on the application, and the only thing you need is the child's date of birth. That's it. There's no height, there's no weight, there's no other, it's like, and the 2 questions are really easy. Couldn't tell you exactly what they are, but they're easy questions to answer health-wise on the kids. And you don't have to go through that. You don't need the kid's social, anything like that. A lot easier to write than anything else. You'll thank me later. I used to call that kind of product my gas writer, because we used to add it as a writer, or consider it like it would pay for my gas for the whole week. It's like I would write like 1 or 2 of those consistently a week, and it would pay for my gas for the whole week. Totally irrelevant now, but I figured I'd share it. So the way to think of it, that is like you just write those, you're increasing your persistency, increasing your, what they call your care ratio, the number of applications that you're submitting. So it has a positive effect, and yeah, anyways, you get paid on it too. It's a little bit of money, but hey, no one's going to complain about that. Okay, transitioning in to 8:35. All right, we're on time. Recruiting. Okay, so with that, if you look at people that are successful now, what you do different in the beginning if you could go back and do it again? Pretty much every single one of them says I'd start recruiting earlier. So let me share with you, and I know Grant Reynolds has shared this before. He and I were at the first conference in February 2018. That's where we first met. Couldn't tell you the name of the restaurant. Really kind of cool place. It was upstairs. We were talking. I had a chance to meet with him, and Chris and I introduced each other. And at that same conference, he heard that. He heard that what these people that are really ultra successful here would have done different is would have started recruiting immediately. So he heard that loud and clear, and he started recruiting immediately. And he had 7 people into licensing before he had his license. Okay, 7 people into licensing before he had his license. And he'll tell you himself, he was so bad at it when he went to recruit Elijah. Elijah thought he was trying to sell him an insurance policy. Like total disconnect there. It's like, what are we even talking about here? He had no idea. That's how bad he was in the beginning. But look at the end result. Within 10 months, qualified as an agency owner, and one of the youngest on our team, and one of the youngest in the company for sure. And he was just basically following the steps. Okay, just following the steps. So what does that look like? Warm market recruiting. With the same analogy applies. So we're not trying to turn rocks into gold. We're not trying to make people interested. When Chris called me, he said, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing?" And he'd ask me just, "Hey, what are you up to?" And asked me, am I open to kind of checking out other things? And my answer was yes, right? He asked a question, and I said yes, right? So if you ask that question and someone says no, then at that point, if you proceed, you're going to be trying to turn that rock into a piece of gold. They're not open. They're happy, okay? So if they're happy, basically that's your check for interest. You're going to go through a screening process. I'm still using the video, believe it or not, that I watched when I first saw this, okay, along with another short video. So what I'm going to do is, so Dustin, hey, what are you up to, bud? What are you doing now? You don't have to role play back, and then say, hey, are you open to, checking out some other things, like maybe, making some additional income? Yeah, it depends. Okay. Hey, you know what? I'd love to get your feedback on something. I'm going to shoot you over an email. Love to get your feedback. What's your email address? Perfect. Great. I'm going to send this over, and I'll give you a call this afternoon. You think you have time to watch it? It's about 5-6 minutes long. Perfect. What's this about? Oh, just watch the video. It'll explain. Pretty much the less you say is better, right? Less is more. Call them back, and then they're leaning towards or they're leaning against. So if they're leaning towards, basically say, you know what? I'm just getting rolling with this thing. I see a lot of people having a lot of success. I'm not the right person necessarily to answer all your questions. They're all good questions, but what I would suggest we do is just set up a 3-way call, right? And then get your mentor, your key leader, your agency owner on the phone. I think that's a real super, super simple way to do it. Totally takes the pressure off you. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to answer all their questions. What's doing the heavy lifting? The heavy lifting, the video is doing the heavy lifting, and your upline, your manager, your mentor is doing the heavy lifting, right? And just casual, right? Like the tendency too is because of what we do for those who have been around more than a week or two, you realize that this is what's going on here, or hopefully you do. And we're getting results like no other company in the country as far as impact and income, right? How we're impacting the world around us and the families that we help, and how we're impacting our family in the form of income. So it's easy to get excited. You need to kind of dial that back, because people, just in the same way in the home, people want to buy, they don't want to be sold. And the same thing here. Like, let them discover. Like, the culture here is amazing, right? But it's not taught. Like, we can't just tell them. We can mention it, right? It's good to mention it, but for them to truly understand the culture is it has to be caught. So culture is caught, not taught. So getting them around the culture of the company is really the key there. So that's what warm market recruiting looks like. I think we tend to overcomplicate it. So if you were to do that 5 times a day for a week, see what happens, I think you'd be really, really excited. We talk about a project 100, which can be a little bit daunting, making a list of 100 people. How about a project 10 for this week? Write down 10 people, do that exact process, and see what happens. And keep in mind too, most are going to say no or not interested, whatever. That's fine. We're just looking for that one. All right. We're just looking for one at a time. We're not trying to turn that rock into gold. So looking at cold market recruiting, there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. A lot of us are using, for example, ZipRecruiter. So that's an option. There's a process there, I'm sure, that's in place. All of us do it a little bit differently. So you have to kind of ask as far as what the process that your agency has in place. But looking at the investment there, it's just like leads, but it's not. It's a long game. It's not a short game. Like, we could literally get a lead today, call it today, set an appointment later for today, write the application, today being Tuesday, and get paid on Thursday. That's a really, really, really short cycle. With recruiting, it's a much longer cycle. Okay, it's typically going to take 90 to 120 days to see tangible results. The untangible is going to be getting people into licensing and things like that, right? So the tangible result is going to be actually where the insurance company is now paying you for that volume that you've created. So it's a much longer game. But let me ask you a question. What if I told you that if you invested $12,000 over a year, we're not talking about recruiting, we're talking about stock in Microsoft. Let's break it down, right? So you're investing $12,000 over a year, and putting in the hard work, right, of recruiting. Okay, you could create a passive income in 1 year and a $12,000 investment, passive income that would be double what people work in a very traditional sense their entire life for. So $12,000 investment, what if that can net you $50,000 a year, $50,000 a year for the rest of your life and the rest of your kids' life? That exists here, in case you didn't know. Like, that's very real. And in fact, that's what Grant did, and I don't even think he invested anywhere near $12,000 because he was working warm market. Okay, it doesn't have to cost that much, but if you're using the cold market, it's going to cost about that much. So Jacob Pogue has put together a great PowerPoint that breaks it down month by month by month by month, what that looks like. And he doesn't even show a single dollar made until the 4th month. And at the end of the year, basically in fact, that's not even correct, because it would say, hey, your net income was $50,000. So that was above and beyond your investment. So hopefully you track those numbers, but it's really more of a concept saying this is a investment in yourself. Imagine buying stock in Microsoft early on, or imagine being the janitor at Microsoft when they first started and they got stock options. All of those people are multimillionaires today that worked for Microsoft. So we now have that opportunity in our own business, on our own ground floor, as we're sweeping and doing the mundane things of our own business, to invest in our business in the same way that those janitors did as they received stock options as part of their pay. So that's very real, and it's very, very real here, and it's happening. It's happening right now. So how building helps is, as you do this, you can only create so much volume. Like what we say is the people that are truly working full time. And Ashley Tarr, I saw this on a video, so I feel comfortable sharing these numbers. So someone who's truly working part-time is going to be an average of maybe $75,000 a year. Okay, nothing super spectacular. But the people that are good, they're going to be averaging about $150,000. So if you look at Jordan Gillen, you look at Laura Davis, you look at Joe Martinez, myself, we're at that, pretty much in that area and above, okay? And if you look at people that are great, like the people you see consistently on those leaderboards, okay, and I believe we have some great people on our team. And actually, Joe Martinez last year hit the number that I'm real close to the number I'm about to say, but the people that are great at our business average about $250,000 a year and up. Joe last year made $240,000, top income earner on our team. So just to give you an idea from a full-time perspective of just writing business, that's the kind of income level that can and is being achieved here. However, where did I start? Where did Jordan start? Where did Laura start? Where did Joe start? Where did Grant start this year from a personal production standpoint, having made all that money at zero, okay? Like in personal production, in sales, you're only good as your last week, your last month, your last year. That's it. You're only as good as that because you're starting over every single day. When you build a business, you're now creating more than you could ever create on yourself. And the beautiful thing about this is that the insurance companies will pay you for that increased volume. And that's simply how it works. Let's say you're doing $10,000 a month and you hire somebody doing $10,000 a month. Now your business is doing $20,000 a month. That obviously is more value to the insurance company, and they're going to pay you for that. And what's amazing is that agent that you hire and doing $10,000 a month, they're getting paid exactly what they earned. So none of that commission or anything is coming off their, basically their sales in a sense, right? It's getting directly from the insurance company. They have the same opportunity as you do to promote and to increase their income levels. So how building that, let's say you have a bad week. How building helps, let's say you have a bad week and your team is crushing it, right? Your income is still going to be level that week, which is fantastic. And let's face it here, as you're working full-time, like a bad week, as you kind of get in the swing of things, a bad week might be $1,000 or $2,000 in income or $3,000 in income. You might consider that a bad week, right? Compared to world standards, that's not a bad week. A bad week is being furloughed without pay. Okay, that's a bad week in a very traditional sense and very real sense of what's going on here now. So let's see here. So that's how building helps. When you first start out, the income that you receive is only 75% of your income, okay? So that's how the commissions work. Our average sale is $1,000. So I'm going to run through this real quick. So I'm going to throw out some numbers. So get ready to write down if you're not familiar with this. So the average sale is $1,000, which equals $1,000 a year, which equals $80 to $85 a month. So that's our average sale. You're going to write bigger ones, you're going to write smaller ones. But based on that average $1,000 sale, we get paid 70% interest, 70% commission at the beginning, okay, which is obviously $700. And how the insurance companies pay us is they advance us 75%. And I'll explain what I mean by advance in a second. So if you take that $1,000 times your contract level, 70% for example, times 75%, that equals $525. Okay, so that's what you get paid right away. So every average sale that you write and get issued, it's about $500. okay, $525. That's deposited into your account within a few days. What happens to that other $175? Well, what happens with that is you're going to get paid that at the end of the year, okay? And the reason why it's called an advance is that in most cases, the client's only paid 1 month. So the insurance company is paying you basically 9 months, right? Because that's 75% of the year. Hopefully that makes sense. They're giving you an advance of 75%. So what happens with the remainder of that? So on the 10th, 11th, and 12th month, you're going to start getting deposits out of nowhere, okay? The math isn't quite as easy as it used to be, but let me run this down there. So 175 divided by 3 is 58 bucks. Just to kind of make it easier, we're going to say it's actually $58 a month on the 10th, 11th, and 12th month. But to make it easy and to be conservative, we're going to say $50 a month, okay? When for that one policy you wrote, let's say in January, now it's October, you're getting a deposit for $50 out of nowhere. And then on November, you're getting another deposit of $50. And then in December, you're getting another deposit of $50. So bringing it back to that original number, when you add up the $525 that you got paid and the rest of that money, now it adds up to 700 bucks. Okay. Now, where it gets really fun and interesting is multiply that by 10. Okay, so let's say you're issue paying $10,000 in a month, which is not a huge crazy number. Okay. Now that $50 or $58 in October is $580 out of nowhere, okay? And if you look at how that rolls, because you did it again in February, you did it again the next month, so the following month, now you're going to get paid twice. So now you're at over $1,100 in income before you even start, okay? $1,100 in income. And then if you look at December, now you're at over $1,600 in income for the month. $1,600 in income for the month, and you haven't even started your month from the work that you did at the beginning of the year. I hope everybody tracks that. If it doesn't make sense, ask somebody, they'll explain it, but help is on the way. What I always say is those are our reinforcements, you know, help is on the way. So that's why we always say like the first 9 months is almost, you know, is the hardest in any job, right? As you start any new job, when you get started, that's the hardest part. So not only are you getting more proficient in what you're doing, you're mastering the mundane, you're actually now have these reinforcements coming in. And at that point, you know, that could pay close to your lead bill, your entire lead bill, once you hit all of those trailing commissions. So let's see here. Okay, so in closing, wrapping up here, we are right on time. I love it. SimplySFG.com. Simply SFG, simply S as in Sam, F as in Frank, G as in golf.com. There's a lot of tips there for telesales. There's a PowerPoint presentation you can download. There's all kinds of resources now that we're doing this virtually, which is amazing. So let me kind of summarize here, and then I'm going to open up for any questions that you guys might have. Master the mundane, do the hard work. The key is massive action, constant correction. Just do the work. The 4 keys to a successful week are resources. You need leads every single week. Activity, we just talked on that one. Okay. System, plugging into the system, being in all the conference calls, reading the book of the month. Okay. Something that's really, really easy to do. Another thing that's really easy to do that will absolutely 100% change your life is read 10 pages a day. If you're not doing that, why not? Why not? Okay, it's one of those things. Most books are under 300 pages. If you read 10 pages a day, you're going to be reading a book a month. At the end of the year, you would have read 12 books. And I'll tell you what, prior to getting into business, you know, going through high school and all that stuff, I doubt I even read 12 books. You know, and then with this, you could read 12 books in a year just by 10 pages a day. So mastering the mundane, doing the hard work, keeping that resources are necessary is number 1. Number 2 is activity. System is reading the books, being on the conference call, and then having that integrity of schedule, working when you say you're going to be working. So that I'm going to kind of close it down with that. Those are called the 4 keys of a successful week. RASS, resources, activity, system, and schedule. Super, super important. And if you heard anything that's even slightly different than what you're accustomed to, always check with your upline before you make any changes at all. So hopefully you got some specific takeaways that you can actually do, and I challenge you to do at least one of those, actually implement something that you weren't doing before, doing it now, whatever that one little thing can be, and it will absolutely make a huge difference over time, okay? So our compound interest is working in our favor. That, and Thomas Edison said, or Benjamin Franklin, I think it was, I forget who said it, was compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world, and reading a book 10 pages a day, that compounded over time will absolutely change your life, as I mentioned. So I have 8:53 my time, so we're pretty much right on time. I'm gonna go ahead and open it up here for questions, comments, feedback. Love to help you out with anything that you might be you know, that I covered that you need some clarification on. So I'll ask you to please, if you have a question, unmute, ask the question, and then mute back. And then we'll just do our best to go around the horn if anybody has anything. So I'll be quiet. Someone's got to ask the first question.
I'll go first. Yep.
All right.
Val, you said you stressed that we're not telemarketers. Sometimes new agents, it feels like we're telemarketing because we're just dialing and dialing and dialing. What do you say to new agents who feel like ultimately we're telemarketers?
Great question. I love the question. First and foremost, you need to get that out of your mind. How do you get that out of your mind? By basically realizing that these people requested information at some point. They reached out to us. Our job is literally to help them get the coverage. Pretty much every one of those people, unless they already got it, they're going to be in trouble if something happens, right? So their budget looks like this. We need to make $5,000 a month to pay our bills. Husband makes husband makes 2, wife makes 3. Okay. So looking at that, if you can visualize that, and then putting a big $5,000 a month is what they need to pay their bills, and putting a big in a red Sharpie minus $2,000 a month. That's what it looks like if something happens to the husband. So what does that look like for the family when you have that budget of $5,000 and they're making $5,000 and you minus $2,000? People need our help, right? So it's our job to reach out to them. It's not our job to make them interested. It's not our job to convince them that they need it. It's our job to unearth that need and fill it, unearth that pain point and solve it, okay? That's what we're doing when we're calling them, okay? We cannot control other people. We can only control ourselves. So if someone's reaching on the phone, hey, that's a reflection on them, not you. If you're getting it a lot, we may need to adjust, you know, the way you're what you're saying or how you're saying it. But just at first and foremost, answer the question more pointedly. Realize that they requested the information. We're calling them back, and that's our job as a caseworker or field underwriter. So great question, Dustin. Any follow-up to that? All right, I think we got it. So any other questions?
What's your advice to agents who are on a budget and are starting off with what they have?
Okay, no, that's a great question. And I forgot to mention this in the very beginning. If you could say your name and who you're direct to so I can see that you're Ann. Who are you direct to, Ann? What group are you part of? Okay, cool. Oh man, you have a great mentor there. So with no budget, here's the thing, like with our business, like we never want to be secret agents, okay? Don't be a secret agent. Let people know what you do. What's great about our system and the fact that we have access to leads is that we don't have to make a list of 100 people that we know and then go try to sell everybody that we know and talk people into buying an insurance policy. But if you simply let people know that what you do, you're going to write some policies. You're going to be able to help some people. And some people are resistant to that, but ask yourself this: your sister, your brother, your cousin, your aunt. Who are you going to be more comfortable with them writing an insurance policy with? Some stranger or you? Who do you think is going to do a better job? You're going to care more for them. And in that process, you're going to make commissions, and that's okay. What you do is basically just reinvest that commission into your lead. That's what you call your seed money, right? So you got to plant seeds, you got to cultivate it before you get the harvest, right? So that way you'll have money just going forward. And it may not be the answer that you like, but it's a real easy way to do it. Let people know that what you do. Let people know what you do. Another alternative is if your budget is really, really tight, we're going to pay for our leads in some way. When you're working warm leads, you're paying for it in a sense, right? You develop those relationships over time. You've earned it in a sense to pick up the phone and say, hey, I just got my insurance license. I need to practice. I'm coming over. Or you call them up and say, hey, when's the last time you looked at your insurance policies? Do you mind if I take a look at those and do a review? That sort of thing. When you're calling older leads, you're paying for it in your time. So if you have a little bit of resources to invest, even if it's 50 or $100, get a whole bunch of old leads and work those. Okay, work those hard. It's going to take more time. It's going to take harder work. But basically, if you're able to convert one of those leads, now you have more seed money to invest and maybe work newer leads. So warm market, and then number 2 is going to be, gosh, 25 or 50 cent leads if they're available in your state. If they're not, maybe you could consider getting a license in another state, but working on that in the future once you have commissions to do that. But those are a couple of ideas. And did that help, I hope? Okay, perfect. Hey, Jared. Nice to see you, bud.
You said hi.
Jordan's not keeping you locked up. I would say she keeps you locked up. Always good to see you on the video, my friend.
Oh, absolutely. We'll be seeing you soon.
Yep, sounds good. Can't wait. Was it Mike, I think, was trying to jump in there, or anybody else? Have any
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Mike. Oh. Mike, who are you direct to? We're going to get in the habit here, the good habit here.
I'm direct to Val.
Hi, there you go. All right. So,
hey, yeah, you were talking about paper apps, and this just came to mind, and I thought about it yesterday, that we still need to file a paper app with each carrier for the first app. Is that true?
Yes. I think there is one exception to that, which is National Life Group, but don't quote me on that, but I'm almost sure that that is the exception. So 99% of the time, your first application has to be on paper. And the reason why it has to be on paper is you don't even have, there's a number of reasons, but one of them is that you don't have access to the electronic app. You have to have access to the carrier website to write an electronic app.
Yeah, you got to be contracted.
You got so it's a little bit of the chicken and the egg. So the first, anyways, that's one of the reasons. We'll just kind of leave it at that. There's other ones, but so good question.
Now, as far as Jacob Pogue's PowerPoint on return on investment on lead money, do you know where to find that?
I can send it to you.
Oh,
I don't know where to find it, but I know that I have it.
Okay, good.
Since you're direct to me, I can send it to you, and if you're direct to some other key leader or agency owner, then they can send it to you too.
Yeah, so, cool. All right.
I'm making a note here, Mike. I will do that.
Okay.
All right. Cool. Any other questions?
Well, one more thing. I don't even know if this is possible, but where do we get tips on where the freshest leads are?
Tips where the freshest leads are.
Sometimes Chris puts out, regions where there's 8 leads and that type of thing, but.
Yeah, if I ever see those, I'll send them out to you. No, I'll send them out to you. You need to be checking, and the thing is, it's very fluid. In other words, it's what we see on our lead ordering system, which is Opt. That's live. So anyways.
Yeah, just gotta keep.
I think you had it. Perfect. Yep, that's it. That's it. It might be there 1 minute and gone the next. I'm going to circle back here real quick. You're welcome. I think they might have jumped off here. Okay. I think Jordan was waving by, not raising her hand. Dustin, do you have another question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, how much does my lead class affect my dialing success? A lot of times we ask, what leads are you dialing? And especially when people are sharing their lead dials in GroupMe after a dial session. Sure. How much do you think that the lead class affects those numbers? Oh,
tremendously. Do you have there's a chart as far as metrics for number of leads to dials, contacts, appointments, all that kind of stuff based on lead type? Do you have that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, sure. So and I understand the nature of the question, but basically with that, as you're working older leads, it's going to take more. So knowing what those metrics are going to help you tremendously. And what I mean by that, let's say you're dialing 50-cent leads. If you don't know that your typical conversion is going to be plus or minus 1 in 50, if you don't know that 49 of those rocks that you're turning over are just rocks, and there's only one piece of gold in that bunch, if you don't know that, it can be really, really frustrating, versus knowing that and picking up 100 leads, working your tail off, writing 2 applications, and celebrating. Because if you look at advanced commission of plus or minus $500 times 2, that's $1,000, okay? And how much does 100 50-cent leads cost? It's not a trick question. It's $50. So you just converted $50 into 1,000. All right. So if you don't know that 49 rocks out of 50, when you're talking about 50-cent leads, if you don't know that those are just rocks, nothing more than rocks, and there's only one piece of gold in there, it's easy to get frustrated instead of getting excited that you just worked your tail off and turned $50 into 1,000. And the newer leads, there's higher conversion rates. So it's called knowing your numbers or knowing your metrics, what the conversion rate and expectation is. It's also talked about managing expectations is really, really key. And the reason, and I've thought about this, so managing expectations, what can we expect from this lead type? And the reason why they say managing expectations, because those can slip. You can forget. So you need to constantly remind yourself of what the proper conversion rate or expectation might be from the different lead type. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So for new agents, when they're getting their first couple batches of leads, how do you know which ones to get?
It's going to be based on their resources. Their resources are time and money, right? How much time do they have to dial? How much money do they have to invest? But we're always going to start people on bonus leads, which is anything other than an A lead. You got to start somewhere, right? It's like, there's the pool, jump in. Like, we don't want you to get a 4-year degree in the classroom on how to swim, right? Because that's costing you money to take that class. No question, right? You go get a degree that's going to cost you money long before you make any money. And you're going to stand there, turn the tassel over, you're going to have your degree in how to swim, you're going to be standing on the pool side freaking out because you don't know how to swim, right? So with that analogy, it's like, just jump in. It may not be pretty, but I promise you'll figure it out if you try hard enough, you're going to figure it out. All right. It takes effort. All right. So basically, if they have a lot of time and no money, they're going to be, get them on really old leads. If they have more money and very limited time, that you may have the opportunity to start them on a little bit newer bonus leads. So it's an individual answer. Cool.
Oh.
All right. Chris, one second. I have Chris McKenzie raised the hand. If you can unmute yourself, Chris.
Hey, good morning.
Sorry, I'll get right back to you. Hey, Chris.
Hey, my name is Chris McKenzie. I work with Chris Martin.
Director Chris Martin, is that right?
Chris Martin.
All right.
So my question is there a difference in preparing for a warm market appointment versus cold market?
Preparing for a warm market versus cold market, not really. I wouldn't say there is. You want to be aware of what products and options are available. You want to have an idea what it costs before you present it. What I usually do is the field underwriting side, I'm going to make sure that I'm presenting something that I believe that they can qualify for. And we do that by doing the client qualification form, understanding it, a good idea of what their health issues might be. And then I'm running quotes. I'll just take a stab at it. I'll run 50,000, 100,000, 250,000 on the different products. So that's what I do. On the back of the lead, I'm just writing just a bunch of hypotheticals, and I'm wrapping my head around the fact that they're 65 years old and a $200,000 policy costs $400 a month. Like, I don't want to be surprised by that when I'm in front of them, right? So it's going to kind of customize to how I present when I get a sense of where they're at financially and things like that. But to answer the question again more directly, really no difference. just be yourself. That's all I can say. It's like that doesn't take any preparation. You know, don't be like this. I'm now a professional insurance salesperson, right? Just be yourself. Otherwise, they're going to think you're just weird at what's happened to Chris, right? So hopefully that helps. Good?
It does.
Right.
And preparing for so the options and choosing the products. That's what I was thinking. Like, do you choose different products like term, whole life, and maybe are you well when you give them the options, or kind of how to decipher between the two?
Yeah, what I would do is do your field underwriting, do your research, figure out what they qualify for. Do your best at what you think. If you're just, and I imagine you're just getting going, right, Chris? Is that right? Okay, so make sure you're doing all of that field work first, and then reach out to Chris, right? Then reach out to Chris and say, hey, this is the homework I've done. What do you think? But make sure you're doing that first. Okay, that's what I would suggest, and he'll be able to give you feedback. Cool.
Yep.
All right, good stuff. We'll jump over to Trent real quick here, and we'll wrap up here in a few minutes. I got 8 minutes over. Appreciate you guys sticking around, and hopefully you're getting good value out of this, and we're going to close it down here in a couple of minutes. Trent, you're up.
Trent Price, director of the amazing Val Zarn. Val, one quick question that everyone might want to hear asked, that conversion rates, they already got those pretty much in any league class. Will any one person do a whole lot better than any other person, regardless of the skill level? Don't you think the conversion rates are pretty solid as far as what we know so far?
Oh, you mean as far as the metrics that we've come up with? Yeah. Is it pretty consistent? Absolutely. No, it's very, very consistent. The key is to master what you do first, and the way that you master it is by doing it. So that's the part where people sometimes give pushback. They want to be an expert before they jump in the pool, and it's not advisable to do that, right? So, and I love this, and this is I've been doing sales forever, and it's something I heard recently. It's not about memorizing; it's about internalizing, and I mentioned that before. So it's just getting really, really comfortable at what you do, and that just takes time and effort. So once you reach that point, now you're going to be hitting those metrics, and you may not hit them right away, but you can't help but do good if you're doing enough of it. And if you're willing to put in those part-time $250 a week, full-time $500 a week, until you reach that level, you're going to hit it really, really fast. You're going to get there fast. It's not going to take months. It might take a week or two if you're earnestly working that hard. Okay? Sweet. All right, time for one last question. If not, I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. Got to act fast. Going once, going twice. All right, so we'll go ahead and close it down. Thanks everyone for being on the call. It was a pleasure. I hope you got a lot out of that. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Let's make the most of it. Take care, guys. Bye.